The first thing they handed me wasn't a welcome packet. It was a list. A printed sheet with bullet points slid across the reception desk without eye contact. The woman behind the counter smiled the way people do when they already know where you belong in their mental hierarchy. Supply closet is down the hall, she said. Restrooms first. Conference rooms after lunch. I looked at the paper again, thinking I had misunderstood. Excuse me? I asked, calmly. She glanced at my badge, then back at me. Yes. Clean the offices. You're new, right? Around us, people moved with purpose, heels clicking, coffee cups steaming, laptops tucked under arms. No one slowed down. No one questioned it. I nodded once. Not because I accepted it, but because I understood something very important in that moment. They had already decided who I was. It was my first day in the building. Not my first day with the company. But they didn't know that. To them, I was just another unfamiliar face. Another body filling space. Another person who didn't look important enough to question. And appearances matter a lot in places like this. I pushed the cleaning cart down the hallway, past framed awards and glossy mission statements. Words like integrity, leadership, vision stared back at me in bold fonts. I almost laughed. Inside the conference room, I wiped long glass tables where executives would soon sit and discuss strategy. I straightened chairs that cost more than my first car. I emptied trash bins filled with half-finished reports and printed slides labeled confidential. No one noticed me. That was the point. People spoke freely when they thought I didn't matter. That board meeting today is going to be brutal, someone said near the elevators. We need the new CEO in place fast, another replied. The old leadership left a mess. I paused, cloth still in my hand. New CEO. Interesting. As the morning went on, instructions kept coming. Don't forget the executive floor. Restock the kitchen. Bathrooms again, clients are coming. Each order came with the same assumption, that this was where I belonged. And each time, I complied quietly. Not because I was weak, but because I was observing. At one point, a man in a tailored suit stopped in front of me. You missed a spot, he said, pointing at a barely visible smudge on the glass. I stepped closer, wiped it clean. There, I said. He nodded, satisfied, and walked away without another word. He never asked my name. By noon, my hands smelled like disinfectant and lemon polish. I caught my reflection in the mirrored elevator doors, hair pulled back, expression neutral, posture relaxed. Anyone watching would have seen exactly what they expected to see. Someone temporary. Someone replaceable. Someone invisible. What they couldn't see was that I had been in this building before, just not like this. I had sat in strategy sessions that decided acquisitions worth billions. I had reviewed reports that shaped entire departments. I had listened while people debated numbers that affected thousands of employees. But those rooms were quiet. Controlled. Exclusive. This hallway was honest. Here, people revealed who they really were. The clock crept toward afternoon. At 3 o'clock, the board meeting was scheduled to begin. I knew that because I had helped schedule it. Months ago. The conference room buzzed with tension as executives filtered in. I wiped the last chair, then stepped back against the wall, cart beside me. They spoke openly, assuming I was part of the furniture. Hope the board made the right choice this time. We need someone decisive. Someone who understands the company from the inside. I almost smiled. Then the doors closed. Security posted outside. And for the first time that day, I stepped away from the cleaning cart. I straightened my jacket. Adjusted my badge. And waited. Because in a few minutes, someone was going to open those doors and introduce the new CEO. And when they did, every assumption made that morning was about to collapse. The doors stayed closed longer than expected. Muffled voices leaked through the thick glass, serious, controlled, impatient. The kind of voices people use when they believe the future is being decided without interruption. I stood just outside, hands relaxed at my sides. No one looked at me. Security shifted their weight, bored. One of them glanced at my badge again, then away, uninterested. To them, I was still the cleaner. Inside the room, the meeting had already started. I could hear fragments. Transition period was handled poorly. Investors are watching closely. We can't afford another mistake. There was tension. Real tension. The kind that comes from knowing something big is about to change and having no control over it. I waited. Because timing matters more than revelation. Finally, the doors opened. A board member stepped out, speaking quietly into his phone. He stopped short when he saw me standing there. "Oh," he said, distracted. "You can finish up in here later." I met his eyes calmly. "I won't need to," I replied. He frowned slightly, confused, but before he could ask anything, the chairwoman's voice cut through the room. "Is everyone here?" Her gaze moved past him and landed on me. She smiled. Not politely. Knowingly. "Perfect," she said. "We're ready." The man turned back toward me, confusion deepening. "Wait, this area is restricted." I stepped past him. Into the room. The conversation stopped mid-sentence. Chairs creaked. Someone dropped a pen. A few people stared openly, their expressions frozen somewhere between irritation and disbelief. I felt it, the shift. The moment when a room realizes it made a mistake. I walked to the head of the table, not hurried, not hesitant. The chairwoman gestured for me to sit. I did. Silence stretched. Finally, someone cleared their throat. "Is there some kind of mix-up?" one of the executives asked carefully. I placed my badge on the table. Turned it so everyone could see. My name. My title. CEO. The room didn't explode. It imploded. Faces went pale. Brows furrowed. Eyes flicked from my badge to my face, then away, like looking directly at the truth hurt too much. The man who had pointed out the smudge on the glass earlier stared at the table. Didn't say a word. "I believe introductions are in order," the chairwoman said smoothly. "This is our new CEO. She's been consulting with the board for months." She paused, letting the words settle. "And as of today, she officially assumes leadership." No one clapped. They didn't know how. Applause would have required admitting surprise. I folded my hands. "Good afternoon," I said. "I hope the offices were clean enough." A few heads snapped up. The realization hit slowly, then all at once. They remembered. The cart. The cloth. The orders. The way they had spoken freely around me. "I wanted to see the company as it truly operates," I continued evenly. "Not the version presented in meetings. The version lived every day. No accusation. No anger. Just fact. And I saw plenty." No one interrupted. They couldn't. Because for the first time, the power dynamic was undeniable. The meeting continued, but not the way they had expected. When problems were raised, I already knew them. When excuses were offered, I asked precise questions. When someone tried to deflect responsibility, I calmly redirected it back to them. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. Authority doesn't shout. One by one, they adjusted. Postures changed. Tones softened. Words became more careful. The same people who had issued orders without thought now weighed every sentence. By the end of the meeting, decisions had been made. Not symbolic ones. Real ones. Restructures. Accountability. Immediate changes. I stood to leave. As I reached the door, the man who had corrected my cleaning stopped me. I didn't know, he said quietly. I met his eyes. I know, I replied. And walked out. The hallway looked the same. The awards still gleamed. The mission statement still promised leadership and vision. But the building felt different. Because now, it was aligned with reality. The change didn't happen overnight. It happened immediately. That's the difference between leadership that performs and leadership that pretends. By the next morning, emails were circulating, carefully worded, formally polite, quietly panicked. Meetings were rescheduled. Calendars cleared. People who had once ignored me now requested time at my convenience. I gave it to them. Not out of generosity. Out of necessity. I didn't walk into my office with dramatic flair. I unlocked the door, set my bag down, and opened the first report I had requested the night before. Numbers don't lie, but people often hope you won't read them closely. I always read closely. Patterns emerged quickly. The same names appeared again and again, projects delayed, budgets inflated, accountability missing. Roles existed that produced nothing measurable. Departments overlapped without coordination. And beneath it all was something worse than incompetence. Comfort. People had grown comfortable believing no one was really watching. The first restructuring meeting was quiet. Too quiet. I didn't threaten anyone. I didn't accuse. I asked questions, simple ones that required clear answers. What outcome did this produce? Who approved this expense? How does this role support the company's goals? Some answered confidently. Some hesitated. Some couldn't answer at all. Those distinctions mattered. Word spread quickly. Not about fear, but about precision. She knows everything. She notices details. She remembers. None of that was new. They had just never bothered to look. A week later, I walked past the supply closet. The cleaning cart was gone. Not because it embarrassed me, but because it symbolized something the company no longer needed. I had already replaced the systems that allowed people to treat others as invisible. The hardest part wasn't the changes. It was the reactions. Some people avoided me entirely, unsure how to reconcile their past behavior with my present authority. Others tried to rewrite history, acting as if they had always supported me, always respected me. I let them try. The truth doesn't need defense. One afternoon, my parents asked to meet. They sat across from me in my office, surrounded by the very company they had once described as just a job. They looked proud, but also unsettled. "You never told us how far you'd gone," my mother said. I smiled gently. "You never asked how far I was willing to go." They didn't push. Because this time, they understood something they hadn't before. I hadn't needed permission. The man who had ordered me to clean on my first day resigned quietly. Not fired. Not shamed. He simply realized there was no place left for the version of himself he had relied on. That was enough. Months passed. The company stabilized. Growth followed. Not explosive, but sustainable. Employees spoke more freely. Problems surfaced earlier. Respect became less performative and more consistent. I still walked the halls. Still listened. Still watched. Not because I needed to prove anything, but because I never wanted to forget what it felt like to be unseen. Sometimes, I think about that first morning. The list. The cart. The assumptions. Not with anger. With clarity. That moment showed me exactly who people were when they thought no one important was paying attention. And that knowledge shaped everything that came after. They told me to clean the offices on day one. They thought that defined me. What they didn't realize was that I had already been cleaning the company. From the inside out.